Hello, everybody. Hold on, do my mic check because I didn't do it before starting, which I should have done. Yeah, sounds good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Writer's Workshop Today, we are going to be covering, it's up there, there it is, transition words. Today's I can use transition words to show a change in time, location, or a cause and effect. Okay, and then the materials you're going to need. The exit ticket should be posted to Google Classroom. A device with a keyboard, ideally. You can write on a tablet, but it's a little more challenging with a virtual keyboard than a actual brick and mortar keyboard. And you're going to need your fantasy fiction rough draft because you're going to be going through your rough draft after the exit ticket and correcting or adding in some transition words. So let's just get right into it. We're going to keep this one kind of short and sweet today. So one of the biggest things with any sort of narrative writing is your readers, like it says up there, must be aware of the when and the where. Okay? If because of a lack of detail or some missing information, we're not clear as readers when an event is happening or when this part of the story is happening or where this part of the story is happening, it takes us a little bit out of the story because then we can't really get immersed in the story. We have to like back up and try and do some digging and figure out where we are and when we are. So if you change location or you change time and you zoom ahead or zoom back if you're doing a time travel thing, and you don't tell your reader that we've changed times or changed locations, it's a little harder to read and a little less clear. So we use transition words to really signal to our reader, okay, now we're moving to a different place, or now we're moving to a different time. We've jumped ahead, we've jumped back, we've moved to the other side of town, those kinds of things. As younger writers, we really start in our transition words with thinking about like, how do I signal that it's like the next part of the story? So saying like, first, this happened. Then, this happened. After that, this happened. Finally, right? That's kind of the pattern of like our like first grade, second grade writing into our third grade writing. But once we get into fourth and fifth grade, we want to get a little fancier and a little more nuanced and specific with it. Okay, so I've gone ahead and broken down our anchor chart here into two specific categories. Okay, we're going to think about transition words or transition phrases that signal to our reader that we've changed in time. Okay, there's two ways we can think about this. We can think about it more directly, right? If we started a sentence with, you know, the next day. And always put a comma after your transition words, or later on. Okay. Or if you're, let's say you're writing a story that takes place in a school, right? And one of those kind of stereotypical schools that have like the bells to mark the end of a class period, right? So you could use like when the bell rang, right? That would be your transition, signaling to your reader, okay, class is over. We're on to the next thing. The next day, later on, for the SpongeBob fans, they like 2 hours later, right? You can use time, right? Time in hours rather than in days, right? To signal to your reader, okay? Without those phrases, right? Let's say our sentence was like, Jimmy started building his Lego house. He was done. Without these, right, Jimmy started building his Lego house. The next day, he was done. Or 2 hours later, he was done. That tells us what's happened, right? If we took that transitional phrase out and it was just, Jimmy started his Lego house, he was done. Did it happen over 2 hours? Did it happen in a second? Is he a Lego genius that somehow built an entire Lego house in a snap, right? If you don't tell us that as a writer, it's jarring for the reader to try and figure out. Okay, and we want to make the reader's job as easy as possible to keep track of the where and when, so they can get immersed and get lost in the story and the richness of the story. Okay. I'm going to just draw like a dotted line under here. There are obviously plenty more. These kind of show the direct passage of time. Or we might think about transition words that show a change in time of the action. Okay. For instance, this one. Suddenly. Okay. It's an adverb, ends in ly, describes a verb, right? Could be, there was a low rumbling from the ocean. Suddenly, Godzilla appeared from the depths, right? If you take that out, it sounds a little jarring, right? There was a low rumbling from the ocean. Godzilla appeared from the depths. Well, how did Godzilla appear? Tell us more. Was it suddenly? Or was it something like gradually, right? These might be opposites or very different transition words. Maybe you want to show that, whatever change is happening slowly or happening a little bit at a time. So you might use gradually, right? Gradually, he built up the layers of his Lego house versus suddenly he built up the layers to his Lego house, right? Very different images in your mind of those two things happening, all based on those transition words, okay? If you can think of other transition words to show the passage of time, go ahead and drop them in the chat and I'll put them up as they come in. The other one I want to think about are changes to location. Again, I'm going to scoot this over closer to the middle so you can see. There we go. Changes in location. Maybe we've switched not the when, but the where of our writing, right? And we want to know and we want to signal to our reader that we've gone to a new place, okay? Rather than having to show, it might not be the best use of our time to show a character walking from his house to the park, right? So we might just say when he got to the park or at the park, okay? So, at the park, we could put in, these are more sort of direct location phrases, so showing that we're in a new location, or on the other side of town. Okay. Those really are direct connections to location. We've got in the chat quickly, for more of a pace transition word, right? Quickly, he made his way up the stairs and out of the building. Versus gradually, he made his way up the stairs and out of the building. Changes the meaning of that sentence, right? Why might he move quickly, right? Why might he move quickly up the stairs and out of the building? Maybe there's a fire. Definitely don't want to do that gradually if there's a fire. You want to do it quickly. Safely, but quickly. Let's pop back to location here. So, transition words starting a paragraph or starting a section, right? With that location and grounding our readers and making them aware of that when and where to make sure they know where they are, where their imagination is, and they can comprehend the events of the story, so then they can just enjoy the rich language that you've put in, okay? At the park, on the other side of town, across the street, right? All examples of locations where we might change things, right? It might be like, Jimmy was walking along the sidewalk. Across the street, he heard a ruckus, right? You take that phrase out. Jimmy was walking on the sidewalk. He heard a ruckus. Where's that ruckus coming from? Right? It's not clear. Could be from across the street. Could be from the empty lot on the other side of him. Could be from a ruckus on the telephone wires above his head. Could be a ruckus from the sewer below his feet, right? if you aren't specific about where something is happening, okay, it takes the reader out of it, because then they have to think about, okay, where is this going on, right? The way you imagine that might be way different than the way someone else imagines that. Okay, and as writers, we want to be as specific as possible because we want the readers to imagine our story the way we intend it to. Okay, there also might be more. These are more sort of direct or exact. Okay, there are other transition words or transition phrases that would show, maybe it's not being specific to the location, but it's showing that location has changed. Things like meanwhile is one of my favorites, right? Meanwhile, usually it's accompanied by meanwhile on the other side of town, right? You can put them together, okay? Meaning like something is happening and this is going on at the same time, right? So you might write a paragraph about, Jimmy building a Lego house. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Jay is building his own Lego house, right? And noting of when two events are happening at the same time, but because we're reading a book or writing a story, we can't really tell two stories of events happening at the same time. We've got to tell one and then be able to say meanwhile, or another big word for us, simultaneously. This really does mean at the same time, right? Simultaneously, or could be like Jimmy was building a Lego house simultaneously. His mom was downstairs cooking dinner. That's not very interesting, so don't write that. But meanwhile, simultaneously, right? We've got, what else in the chat? Let's see. After, sometimes later. Yeah, I think sometime later or later on, right? Of showing that time or showing that location. Okay. The third category I want to get into is an interesting one. We're going to come back over here and I'm going to put this up because there's a third kind of transition word that I want to try if you have this particular thing happening in your story. These are cause and effect transition words. Let's think to Arusha on the end of time, right? She lights the diya and then time stops and the sleeper is awoken, right? The cause, Aru lights the diya. Effect, the sleeper is awoken. Okay, something happens and as a result of that thing, something else happens. That's our cause and effect. And there are transition words for cause and effect, right? As a result, okay? As a result, let's see if I can think of one off the top of my head, right? Let's say Bailey forgot her homework at home. As a result, she had to stay behind and talk to the teacher, right? Easy cause and effect there. So you might want to use those in your writing. Or one of my favorites, due to the fact. Due to the fact that, right? Due to the fact that Bailey did not bring her homework, she was unable to play at recess, right? So showing that cause and effect there as well. Let's see, we've also got, what else do we have in the chat? Oh, just a hi in the chat. Hi. So 3 different examples of these transition words, but it is really important, really important that our readers are aware of when they are, where they are, and also as kind of a bonus, if there's a cause and effect going on. There's also one, a time one that I wrote down and I wanted to mention, which was from out of nowhere. From out of nowhere, a flock of pigeons swooped down and landed on his head. Right? Very different than gradually a flock of pigeons swooped down and landed on his head. Okay? Meanwhile, a flock of pigeons swooped down and landed on his head. At the park, a flock of pigeons swooped down and landed on his head. Okay? Sean covered his head in breadcrumbs. As a result, a flock of pigeons swooped down and landed on his head. Right? So these transition words and transition phrases have a lot of power because they change and can really make clear the context of your events of your story. Okay? So for your exit ticket today, it is on Google Classroom. It's going to ask you to fill in the blank with a transition word or phrase. It can be any transition word or phrase you think fits there, even one that's not up here, right? Or you can take one here and tweak it. It doesn't have to be at the park. It could be at the roller rink or at the pier or at the space station, right? On the other side of the space station, across the space station. Meanwhile, on the space station, see what I'm getting at? So exit ticket, and then once you've done with the exit ticket, you're going to take your fantasy fiction rough draft and reread it and think about where would it help to put in a transition word or a phrase to show a change in time, a change in location, or perhaps a cause and effect. Okay? Start with yours. If you have time and you're excited about it, pick someone in your writing group, read theirs, add a suggestion about a transition word or phrase they might want to add. All right? Good luck. Happy writing. Stay focused. Don't forget about, if you need to, go back to our video on norms and how to set yourself up for writing success, independent writing success. And do the exit ticket, writing group D. I'll see you in about 10 minutes, and have a good rest of the day. Cheers.